So we're going to break down Malcolm Koonce and, his value to the Raiders. Now, after spending his first 2 seasons as a rotational pass rusher and kind of being jettisoned and shunned by Josh McDaniels in his infinite wisdom, Malcolm Koonce was kind of let loose when Antonio Pierce became head coach. And thank goodness that they did. I mean, Malcolm Koonce set career highs last year in sacks with 8, tackles for loss and 9, and forced fumbles 3. He was single-handedly one of the people who won the game for us, him and Jack Jones, against the Kansas City Chiefs. He was absolutely sensational against, the Kansas City Chiefs this year and against the Chargers. He had a great game against the Jets. And, Koonce has always been a guy who, no matter what situation he's been in from the coaching staff, he's a guy that made the decision to work hard, practice the right way, and it is noticed by Patrick Graham and the Raiders brass. And now Malcolm Koonce is in line to make a generational amount of money because his contract will be up soon. And we're going to get into a little bit of that. But first, man, all 8 of Koonce's sacks came after week 8. So that goes to show you that he's trending on an upward trajectory, right? So when you start thinking about contract numbers and what that looks like for the Raiders, because we've already got a lot invested in our defensive line. The Christian Wilkins signing was our biggest signing of this past offseason. Then, Max Crosby is getting highly paid, not as high as he probably should. He just got a $6 million raise. Now you have to start factoring into the fact that we have a top draft pick in Tyree Wilson, who is still on a rookie deal. So we can project that out. And then you have young Malcolm Koonce, who is really the linchpin to making this defensive unit special. So when you start comparing contract numbers to some of the recent contracts that have been had, look no further than Bryce Huff. Bryce Huff has left the New York Jets and gone on to the Philadelphia Eagles. He's a guy who has similar numbers to Malcolm Koonce. He's played a lot more than Malcolm Koonce. So if Malcolm Koonce had played more in his first 2 seasons, his numbers might be out of the water, right? But that's not the case. And when you look at his deal right there, you got to understand something. That is what the Raiders are probably going to be looking to start to re-sign Malcolm Koonce. Now, is Malcolm Koonce a must-sign, even with the young Tyree Wilson? I'm going to say absolutely. Malcolm Koonce is starting to mature into the kind of pass rusher that people wish they drafted in the first round, and we got him in the 3rd round. He's a homegrown Raider, and I think that the Raiders really need to start working on that deal now. I have said in the past that we don't know what kind of year Malcolm Koonce is going to have. We don't want to overpay a guy who only had, 8 games. But I go back to the Darren Waller deal. And shout out to my brother, Big Mike. Big Mike was saying this. The Raiders had the foresight to get on the Waller deal early, and they got him for a marketable bargain because Gruden had the foresight to see how special of a player he was, and they gave him a deal right after the first year he did well. And I think the Raiders would be smart to do that. Now, we're going to get into some of Koonce's numbers. Now, Koonce had 25 solo tackles, 5 assists. Now, what that tells me is everybody says that Malcolm Koonce was a liability in the run game, but I think that's a misnomer. I think Malcolm Koonce is viable and stout against the run, and the numbers show that based off of the amount of time that he's played. Now, we have a great problem here, having 3 pass rushers and a guy in the middle who, to my knowledge, is one of the 3 best defensive tackles in football. I think the Raiders would be smart to lean into the strength of this team and the engine of this team, which is the defensive line. I go by the old school metric of building a team from the inside out. If the Raiders focus on the defensive line like they have, and make sure that all those guys are locked up and paid in their youth, make sure that their offensive line is viable going forward. Listen, you build and fill in the pieces around the engine of a football team, which is the interior. Now, let's talk about the Bryce Huff contract and why I think that it's very, very similar to the Malcolm Koonce situation. Now, when you start talking about Bryce Huff, the 6'3", 255 pass rusher out of Memphis, His cap number is 1.68% of the salary cap of the Eagles. His cap charge is 4.3 million. His cash payout, is probably going to be somewhere around, and the total contract value around $51 million over 4 years. So his cap number for this year is 4.3. 2025 it's 7.5. 2026 it's 11.7. In 2027 it's 27 million. It's fully guaranteed up to $34 million. So the Eagles will probably be able to get out of that contract going around the third year if he doesn't live up to it. And I would probably think that, this is probably the place where you would want to slot Malcolm Koonce in, because he hasn't done a whole lot in his NFL career, only putting together, last year, which was a half of the year, and going into this year, a half of a year. Can't really demand top 10 money. Bryce Huff's contract is 17th out of 269 eligible players that play, edge. So that's a pretty, nice place to be off of only, very, very limited numbers. Now, when you talk about Malcolm Koonce and when you talk about his importance to the Raiders, therein lies why I feel like Malcolm Koonce is the guy that, when you start talking about the future players that need to be signed, you start talking about the Raiders salary cap situation and the windfall of cash they got from releasing Jimmy Garoppolo, Malcolm Koonce should be first in line to get signed. Now, I've changed my tune from what I said on a live previous, and I admit it, right? But I start thinking about it, and I start looking at the numbers for a lot of edge rushers in this league. And I went down the top 10 edge rushers in this league. And the way I see Malcolm Koonce's, production translating, his production, if he can mirror what he did last year and improve on that with extra playing time, can have him around 13, 14 sacks, around, 60 something tackles. And, to me, that puts him right in line as a top 13 player at his position. So you got to pay him as such, right? Also, when we start talking about the Raiders and their salary cap number, I really prefer for the Raiders to go out there and lock up their young talent, early, so that they can continue to prepare themselves for free agents that are viable in the future, maybe going out there and getting a free agent QB if need be, if Aiden O'Connell doesn't pan out, which I think Aiden O'Connell, he has a chance to, and really making this defense one of the staples around the NFL and known as one of the top units in this league for years to come. And I think that's our easiest way to actually competing and winning this division. Hey guys, listen, this is a quick short on Koonce. If you guys like what you heard, hit that like, hit that subscribe button. Raider Nation Unlimited. I'm your man, Wasted Talent. We're going to get out of here real soon. So when you start talking about where you would like to see Malcolm Koonce slotted, you guys let me know how much you guys think is fair for Malcolm Koonce. I mean, look, I'm no agent. I'm all for players getting all the money that they possibly can. But let's just say, for shits and giggles, how much money do you think is the right contract to keep Koonce in the building? Do you think it's somewhere around the Bryce Huff contract? Do you think it's somewhere a little bit over that? I'd like to know. The contract value $51 million. So where would you slot Koonce at? 53 because of inflation and because it being another year? Like, do you put him at 53, 54? What do you guys think would be fair for Koonce? You guys let me know in the chat, man, and let me know if there's anyone you'd like me to cover. We're going to be going live late tonight. Pull up. It's your brother Wasted, man. I'm signing off.